Hi, and welcome to an episode of the Jet Rails podcast. I'm Robert Rand, your host. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about achieving e-commerce growth in a down market. So, as everyone listening knows, there is turmoil that is impacting e-commerce businesses as well as any sort of merchant, whether they're up, they're down, they're hurting, they're dealing with unique challenges. We certainly want to spread some love around things that you can be doing to position yourself both to get through a crisis like this and potentially to come out ahead when all is said and done, to be better positioned in the market. I'm joined today by Sasha from Catapult Revenue, and we're going to be talking about the ins and outs when it comes to marketing and related topics. Before we jump right into that, I do want to share in all of our episodes right now, I'm throwing in a little public service announcement that we are at JetRails part of some initiatives in the community to support merchants in need that need help quickly to address whatever they're dealing with. That includes offline merchants that are trying to get online quickly. It includes existing merchants that need forms of assistance. I'm going to share some links in the description of the episode, in the notes, and certainly welcome you to check that out. And if there's anything that we can do to support you, whether directly at JetRails or through inviting you to chat with some of our partners with various expertise across the e-commerce spectrum, we're here for you. So we hope to hear from you. With that, Sasha, would you do us the honor of introducing yourself?
Yeah, so quick summary, not to overpitch myself. I've been running my own businesses almost my entire life. I started making money when I was 13, and I think I've never stopped. And my first brick and mortar business here in the United States, I started end of 2001, and I have never worked for a day of my life for anybody. I did work at a friend's company, but there was like an equity agreement there, so that doesn't count.
Hmm.
Today, I am running a digital marketing company, and we have a few brands. One of the brands is called Catapult Revenue, and that brand is completely focused on e-commerce and e-commerce only. I think that my expertise is, I wouldn't say that I am a retailer, as I'm not. I'm not an e-tailer, as I'm not. But what I am is somebody who just racked up a lot of miles in various businesses, and I know how to grow a business absolutely irregardless of conditions. And what I could probably share today, which would be useful across the board, whether you're listening to this podcast now in March or April of 2020, where there is so much fear out there because of coronavirus, so many businesses are closing temporarily, and I think some of them may not reopen, actually. It depends on how long this thing is going to take. Or whether you're listening to this 6, 9, 12 months down the road or 5 years down the road, I think some of the fundamentals that I will be talking about today, they apply, like absolutely regardless of what state the economy is.
Yeah, and Sasha, I think you and I have both been through recessions with clients and merchants in tow, and seen some of the things that have worked universally pretty well. Concepts and what have you. Things that have not panned out as much. And so, I'm glad that you're with me today to share some of that knowledge, and understanding that the businesses are going to be dealing with cash flow crunches and with a lot of volatility in the market. And so, not trying to make believe that there isn't market volatility and that there aren't challenges that go above and beyond your marketing, but there's a lot out there that you can do. And so with that, why don't we start by talking about any misconceptions that you're running into in the market, anything that you're hearing from merchants and businesses that you think might be potentially detrimental, that where they might be engaging in strategies that are more prone to failure?
Definitely. But I think first it's worth noting that so many of Fortune 1000 businesses were launched during times of economic recessions. Like so incredibly many. Like FedExes of the world were started during recessions when the economy was no good. So when you think about your business, your company, your website, whatever it is that you're doing, I think the major misconception, it's not even a misconception, it's just a very faulty way of thinking, right? What is that old saying? When there is greed, right, you got to fear and you got to run away. When there is fear, you got to be greedy. I know I totally butchered that quote, but it's truth, right? So
Well,
everyone tends to go into the market when the market is hot. I'm talking about like stock market, right?
sure.
And then everyone runs away like as soon as shit hits the fan. Can I say the word shit here? Is that okay?
I think so. I think
You
now
okay?
I have
Okay.
to mark this episode as explicit material. But hey, let's do
13
it.
at least. So I think that like the first thing that you got to think about, regardless of what type of business you're running, is that when everyone is thinking contraction, when people like worry and they try to take up like the hardest defense positions, you got to start thinking expansion. You got to start thinking, how do I exploit this weak thinking on my competitors' end, right? Because if you're going to take up the same position as them, you're going to contract just as they will, and you might not survive. And we know that I think the only industry that has the higher failure rate than e-commerce is the restaurant industry, right? Like failure rate in e-commerce business is spectacular. It's like 80 to 95%, I believe, is the failure rate because people go in without the right thinking, the right budgets. They just go and do stuff. Like I want you to think like as a merchant, I want you to think that like when things are bad, you got to think like, how do I expand? How do I capitalize on this fear? And there are so many ways, but like the fundamentals are really simple, right? You got to be where and when customers are looking for your products. I know the things that I'm saying are like beyond simple, but at the same time, if you were to audit 1 million e-commerce websites to see just how findable their products are they where and when people are looking for their products? Overwhelming majority couldn't be found.
Yeah.
Second thing, you have to give your customers, your prospects, what it is that they want so that in return they give you what you want, which is sales. Right? And again, something really basic, but when you go to overwhelming majority of merchants, their websites, and you look at product descriptions, my God, it's like such a simple thing, but it's lacking to like such a high degree where a customer is left like looking at it and wondering whether this is something that would fit or not, something that would work or not, and where's your return policy? And do you have great customer service? How do I make sure that you're a legit shop? Because often enough, you go to an e-commerce website and what happens? I was like, I don't know if this is a legit shop. I better go shop on Amazon, right? And for some of you, Amazon works great, and for others, it doesn't. Like, I'd like to keep my business channel through my website rather than Amazon to maintain my profit margin. Pretty basic, right? So those things like are really something that, especially in the tough times, like think about that.
Yeah.
And here's another thing that's absolutely bewildering to me. And I know I'm like absolutely like rambling on here, but when you think about like market leaders, you could learn so much from them, right? Like so much from them. Like how did they become as big as they have become? Like my favorite example in the world of e-commerce, aside from the obvious Amazon, is Zappos. Like what makes Zappos so unique, aside from their phenomenal customer service, which was a key to their initial growth, right, is the fact that everything they sell has a very short video. Like every product is accompanied by a short demo. Like for you guys, like it doesn't matter how many items you have. Like if your product could be demoed, it should be demoed. And it literally takes like a couple minutes to do that. And if right now or at any other time you're experiencing downtime, it's a great way to invest that time. Do product demos, whatever it is that you might be carrying. If you have that physical object, if you don't drop ship to the point where you just do not have any of it in your warehouse or in your spare bedroom, however you might be running your business, Like get those items out and just demo them. And by the way, the investment into equipment for you to set up like almost a professional grade studio to demo those products the way that Zappos does it, I mean, it will cost you maybe like $1,200, right?
It's amazing that, that is such a spectrum. I know from amongst, JetRail's user base that the failure rate of business is extremely, extremely low because they're mostly a little bit more established. When you talk about the wider e-commerce market, there are an infinite number of websites, between all the different e-commerce platforms and such that launch, where people are spending $20, $30 a month to run an e-commerce shop. They add some product and they wonder, and it's almost like if I built it, the shoppers will come. But this is not the e-commerce world of 10 years ago when there were very few websites to choose from. And you stood a good chance of rising up organically in the search engine rankings without a lot of attention to it. And you could just, run some simple ads really, really cheap and do other things. You've got competition, if not for your products, then at least for your customers, for their time and their attention. So, there's a lot, absolutely, that if you want to see growth in e-com today, that you've got to, be where the customer's at, as you said, Sasha, and you have to be compelling for them. And, and we talk a lot about conversion rate optimization and things that basically make it easier for that shopper to figure out that this is a purchase that they want to make and to actually make that purchase. And when we're looking at a lot of the overall process, there are standards today in terms of the site feeling secure and being secure. Just more importantly, in many ways, the site being fast. And there are signals that people take about the quality of your website and your business. So first impressions in a lot of ways can make or break online, and some of it's subconscious. But there are a lot of basic standards that people don't always think about when they're launching an e-commerce, and that absolutely have major, major impact.
And what you just said also applies not to those who have just launched. It applies to seasoned merchants as well. Like we had clients come to us who have been in business for like 5, 7, 8 years. And we'll look at their top line and they're like $5 million in revenue. And what I want to know is like, who's your top competitor? Like who carries a very similar product line? It's especially applicable to like B2B guys. Let me use an example of, let's say that you're selling $5 million worth of HVAC equipment per year. If you're doing $5 million in e-commerce, you're already okay, right? You passed certain like points of like serious hardship, as many like e-commerce has never break through even $1 million. But at 5 million, if you're hungry, which you should be because 5 million is still a very small business, right now we're asking them questions like, who are your top direct competitors? They show us companies and they do like $500 million in revenue. And we ask them, what's the difference? They're like, they're just bigger. They sell a lot more. And I'm like, why are they selling so much more than you do? For like every dollar that you attract, they get 100. How come? And it usually comes down to, once again, like some basics, right? Are they out marketing you? Yes. Is their website outdoing your website? Mm-hmm. By the way, like how much will it cost for your website to be competitive grade to what their website is, right? Just competitive. You do not have to like amaze people with crazy, wonderful designs. It just has to be competitive grade. Like if your prospect goes to your website and then goes to their website, they couldn't tell the difference, right? It's the same. It's on the same level field, right? It looks just as professional. It delivers just as great of user experience. It's just as fast, just as secure. You feel just as confident buying from one or the other. Yet so many players at $5 million and even more, like, would not take the time to bring their website to like competitive grade level. Beyond that, like when you think about marketing, we always ask our clients, like, why did you decide on like this marketing budget? And many a times it's not lack of resources. It's just like, well, that's what we set aside. I'm like, okay, well, how big do you want to be? A year, 2, 5 years from now? And they talk about numbers, and many times like, well, we wish like in 3 years we could double. I'm like, that's a great goal. Let me ask you, this $500 million company, How long did it take for them to go from 0 to 500 million? And like, well, they've been around since 2004, so it's been like 15 years, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm like, but look at their trajectory, how they have grown, and look at the trajectory that you're choosing. It is usually like a deliberate choice, right? You decide how fast you're going to grow. The guy or gal who started a $500 million company just chose a very different trajectory. It's not like they raised capital. Well, some of them have, but many of them haven't. It's just a different type of thinking. So I often, like, not always, but often come back to that mindset. Like, what are you charting for yourself in the future? And many a times it's like such a wake-up call to those entrepreneurs who are now running that $5 million shop. And they're like, I don't know why I've been thinking about this business in terms of 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah.
It's always an interesting conversation when, digital marketing is very much so a data-driven industry. And when people look at it more like traditional marketing, and branding exercises and things that are harder to track or a little bit looser overall, it's apples and oranges. So you look at running some form of paid ads, Google ads, and you know exactly what your ROI is for every dollar that you spent. You made $10 in revenue off of your e-commerce website. Well, if you're doing that and your ad spend is $10,000 a month, well, if you could spend 20 and still make that same ratio, have that same return on your investment, why wouldn't you double it up? Find the money and double your business. That there are thresholds where that stops working, where there's no more high quality,
Sure.
traffic at that same price or same conversion rate, et cetera. But when you think of it in those terms of saying, look, if you found a model that works, put as much into it as you can until you reach a breaking point where you can't get any more of that, and you've got to look to other sources. It is a different mindset than a lot of other marketing or a lot of other initiatives.
Yep, absolutely. And another thing, and right now I'm thinking back about our coronavirus current situation, right? Like how to grow, how to not just maintain, but how to grow and thrive at the tail end of this thing. One of the major issue, or a major gap rather, that I see with a lot of merchants is the following. They are thinking about how to get a sale, right? And everyone like wants to get a sale, but what they should be focusing on is they should be getting a customer, not a sale. My goal for my businesses is to always get a customer. Show them love, show them care, follow up with them after they bought, right? Make sure that we're there for them forever, serving them, making their life better, making their business better if this is a B2B situation. So when it comes to e-commerce, when it comes to merchants, so many of them have either absolutely no program in place to follow up with customers, like at all, right?
Yeah.
Or have a very, very weak program in place, which is like 1 or 2 emails, the end. Now, a customer who has purchased from you once and it was a quality product is highly likely to buy from you again. In fact, more successful merchants that we have, they report to us that 25 to 30% of their revenue comes from repeat business. Now, what that means to you is you've already spent money acquiring this customer once. The second time around cost you nothing to make that sale. Aside from sending out those emails, I keep a close tabs on annual statistics from various resources on all things in commerce. One of the stats that I absolutely love and adore and tell all of our clients about is that for every dollar invested into email marketing in e-commerce, I don't think it works like that anywhere else, but in e-commerce, you get $38 back.
So if you do it, it's so such a low cost. If you think about what it costs to send out a direct mail piece between the design and the printing and the addressing and the lists and the postage and all in, it gets pricey per piece. What it costs per email is negligible.
Okay.
Above and beyond that, for merchants of a certain size, it doesn't have to be all that big anymore. Being able to engage in multi-channel communications, being able to reach out to merchants through text messages, SMS messages, which they're pretty responsive to. Open rates of text messages are pretty strong still.
Yep.
There's various mediums, right? So it's back to being where your customers are, and speaking to them in relative terms. And at the same time, look, there've been tons of messages now that talk about, the COVID-19 response of different companies. And in some ways, there are some companies where it's important to let your customers know that you're open for business, that you have a contingency plan, or whatever else is going on. And that's communications can be important. But there are other things that you can be doing to stay top of mind with customers. You don't have to be ambivalent to what's going on in the world, but you can still try to bring them value. And I think that's what's often important about. It's not about sending 3 emails a day and sort of just filling people's inboxes. It's about value. So when it comes to thought, leadership there, it's I've always liked to think about a variable strategy where you're going to have more than just one type of communication, and not just medium, not just how you're sending the messages, but talking about what you're doing in the community, talking about what's new in the market, new products, content that you're putting out, about comparing products, or things of that nature. Sasha, I'm sure you've got some great campaigns that you've helped people to run. And I think that it's important to remember that you're marketing to people, and that, as Sasha, as you said, that customer lifetime value, that you're trying to build a relationship. You want this customer not just to convert one time, but to come back to the website, to tell other people about it, to share it in other places and make more people aware, to think of it as a brand, as a business, as an entity, with its own story, and not just as a commodity. Because then, Amazon's for commodities. Amazon's not really the safest place for a merchant. It's a place where you can get lost in the shuffle as a seller pretty quickly. There's a lot more safety in building your own brand and your own customer base. And Sasha, I mean, anything come to mind when it comes to some of those, unique campaigns and ways of really engaging with shoppers?
Definitely. So I'm going to use an example that is not our client, but they are a local to me company. So I live in Chicago, actually just north of Chicago, and we have a local company called Grunt Style. They are basically a t-shirt shop that has expanded their product line. They print all the stuff here somewhere like southwestern suburb. So all of their labor is here. Their office is here. They're a pretty awesome bunch of guys and gals doing this. And one thing that they do is they're absolutely relentless about sending out emails and communicating with customers. Some of those emails are commercial, and some of those emails are just that, hey, what's up? Here's what we've been up to. How can we support you better in whatever these challenging times, etc. Here are some news. Here's some stuff that you may find interesting. There is definitely intent in their email campaign, but they also understand that they stay in front of me. Like staying in front of me via email costs them nothing, right? And from time to time, I'll click their emails. It's not 100% open rate. It's not 100% click-through rate, but there is a rate. And unlike clicking their ads on Facebook, those open rates do not cost anything, right? It's just the cost of creating that one email. So whether you're watching this, listening to this during difficult times or during great times, remember that if you do not have a consistent email sequence, you're leaving money on the table. The way that we recommend our clients and do for our clients to do this, first of all, something super simple, it's create a calendar of national holidays. As long as your product can be promoted and attached to any of those holidays or all of those holidays, do it. So holidays is number one, seasons is number two. Like, hey, spring is in the air. Buy my shit, whatever this shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not like trying to sell coffins for Memorial Day or something, or Mother's Day. I mean,
but
they're very few.
most things.
That's a bad exception for me to think about. But
yeah, I don't know how you came up with that, but all right.
Yeah, I don't know why that, but no, I've worked with a few categories of merchants that
interesting,
get more creative.
Yeah.
But in general, I think absolutely that there's nothing wrong with sending some cheer into the world, as long as, in my opinion, as long as it's part of a varied marketing effort where it feels natural and it's, your only communication isn't buy our stuff and, and here's what's on sale, we're discounters and what have you. But actually speaking to being experts in your field, again, not just keeping it as a commodity, but producing content, some of that content on your site, blog or otherwise, video content. I mean, I don't want to give anybody ideas about creating podcasts or anything. That's a terrible idea. That nobody wants those. But you get the idea that there are different ways of getting messaging out there that's helpful, or just in some cases, as I try to do, bringing value to the market, and not always being focused on the immediate conversion rate, on the immediate opportunity to make a sale on the spot, but supporting a community, supporting a customer base, and knowing that you will achieve some success out of that as well in a great many cases. That I think that one of the things that we talked about or touched on a little bit earlier was how there will be some companies that aren't able to weather the storm. There will be companies that are going to recede from a lot of marketing. They're going to hold on to capital as best as they can. They're going to make a lot of tough decisions, in many cases out of fear. And if you're going to market picking up some of that market share, there's a good chance that you're going to hold on to it and even see growth after a recession event. And I think that's, if anything, one of the key takeaways that we heard a little bit from Sasha, and that I would certainly be very much on board with, that there are opportunities here, even in a down market, even in a crisis. As long as you'll recognize what's going on in the world and respect it, that you can formulate ways to try to not only stay afloat, but to build a better ship for yourself.
Without a doubt, and thinking about some of the ideas of how you can not just survive but thrive through this. And we have not implemented this yet, but it just came to me while I was listening to you. And that is, so as we're going through this coronavirus debacle, if I was a merchant today, what I would do is I would find a company, an organization, somebody that is in the process of developing or mass producing a solution that helps the world address this issue. So as of today, March 27th, 2020, the shortage of personal protection equipment. Like, we know that hospitals, nobody was like truly prepared for this because we've never seen anything like this, right? So face masks are in short supply. Ventilators are in short supply, whatever. If I was a merchant today who was very business-minded, but also conscious of the planet and the community that surrounds me, what I would do is I would run a certain promotion where I would say that we partnered up with this organization that is supplying these masks. Every sale that we make, 10%, 20%, 15% of the sale goes toward buying these face masks and sending it to this hospital or that hospital or doing this. Like, you can come up with those ideas as long as you're creative. And when you think about like, well, that's going to erode my profit margin. True. But one is, if you're thinking about, I'm making a sale to get a customer, then you know that it's okay to let go of that profit margin. And second, thinking back about Jeff Bezos, who made a fairly sizable business, right? So his whole thing was like, Your margin is my opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe sometimes it's not all about margin. And by the way, I'm hugely empathetic. Like I've been running small businesses for almost 20 years now, brick and mortar. And I know firsthand from 4 businesses now how important it is to have that profit margin to survive sometimes, all the time, right? But at the same time, if you do some of that charitable work right now, where you're going to give away a large portion of your profit margin, that money that you invest into helping others will come back to you wholesomely.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to wait. It will happen. And follow up with them. Once they became your customers, follow up with them. Don't forget.
Yeah, the whole goal, I think, of taking care of people right now is to build a customer for life. From the capitalist perspective, right? Is that you want to build that relationship. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, but law of averages should work in your favor.
Sure.
And you can get creative. So one of the campaigns I once strategized for a client years ago, it was almost a pick your own charity opportunity where we created different coupon codes for the ability to choose. Do you want to use? I'm going to pick at random here. If you use coupon Red Cross, you're going to get 5% off, and we're going to donate 10% to the Red Cross on top of that. And if you choose, coupon, I don't know, Doctors Without Borders, then, the same. And so you choose which coupon, and based on which you chose, we'll donate in-kind donation. And so engaging the shopper to participate instead of, just having on the box that, we're going to give a penny on every whatever it is to charity, but actually making it something that the shopper gets to participate with. And you can pick something in your local community. You can pick something that families might get behind. If you're supporting local education or something right now, there's a lot of school districts and things that are trying to scramble to get technology to give to kids for remote learning. And there's a lot of folks that are upside down on their budgets and hurting, whether, at all. I could go on and on and on about that. So finding ways to engage in ways that people want to participate in. Absolutely. So we started touching on a little bit of actual, conversation about what real merchants are dealing with right now. Now I know that we talked a lot about marketing, but Sasha, I know that there are some other things going on in the world right now that are going to make business harder to operate, or make all the things that we'd like to see businesses do to achieve success right now all the harder, or in some cases near impossible, without shifting gears a lot. Have you been seeing anything in particular? Have you run into any particular businesses where where their traditional business model is really not going to be applicable in the current conditions? So I know that, for instance, like if you're dealing with, with fitness right now, you're not going to be able to bring people into a studio. So, there are all sorts of categories where you may not be able to operate in a more traditional e-commerce sense of selling raw goods or such, selling a shippable item or something that could be picked up at curbside. But any merchants that you've been advising that you think might have started off thinking that they didn't really have a good option here, and that maybe there is a strategy after all?
No, so I have not dealt with that as of recently at all. But here's what I have dealt with. So some merchants who are shipping healthcare related items, vitamins and such, have been grossly under communicating with their customers. So as you can imagine, in the current environment, there are a lot of items that are back ordered. So you may be placing an order and the website may tell you that the item is back ordered or not. Mm-hmm. If it does say that it's back ordered, there is usually like a time estimate right? And it says this will ship in approximately 7 days. Most merchants, not like global behemoths, but most merchants that, let's say, companies under $100 million in revenue, are doing a horrible job in communicating with those customers. And here's what I mean by that. Put yourself into customer shoes. You place an order and you know that it's back ordered and it's expected to be back in stock and shipped in about 7 days. Now, you as a customer now have the following couple options. One is you can just wait and hope for the day when it arrives. So, for example, you have ordered vitamin C or any other immune booster, right? And you're just waiting for that thing and you don't know when it will be delivered. And if you are in a situation as a customer where you need that stuff because you have a member of your household who is immunodeficient, like you're thinking about that item every day. And you're thinking about that merchant every day. That every day that merchant does not communicate about the status of the order, that is the day when that customer doesn't think about that merchant in a positive light. The opposite is also true, and we have advised some merchants to do that, to fix the situation rapidly. We said, communicate with your customers every day.
Yeah.
Give them a status order just the same way as you're talking to your suppliers every day and want to know when will the stuff be back in stock, when will it be delivered to you, or if it's drop shipment, when will it be delivered to your customers. Like you should be communicating the same way with your customers. Here's what it does. When you do that and your competition does not, because often enough that very same customer went to a few different websites and offered a few different items from few different websites. When you do this and your competition does not, what does that build between you and the customer?
Yeah. I had a website that I ordered from earlier in March, and order went through fine. A week and a half later, I got an email saying that they were not able to procure more from their supplier and they were canceling the order. If they weren't able to ship it, and it wasn't on back order, it was listed as available. I would have expected that they would have let me know within a day, maybe 2 days, that the chances that I'm going to go back and order from that same company that I understand just
zero.
Seems, and maybe they were swamped because of everything going on. I try to be forgiving about, individual situations, but that's my only experience with this website. Is that they were ill-equipped to communicate with me effectively, to give me a chance to order in a reasonable amount of time from somewhere else. So absolutely, it has an impact. And, while I may still be on their email list or such, I'm probably not going to be putting any orders in there anytime soon.
Yep.
Supply chain issues are not easy to necessarily overcome, and those are real in the market right now. Although not necessarily, for everyone, but obviously, those listening, either they're having those issues or they're not. It's something where it's always supposed to stay about putting the customer first. And it's not like they reached out to me by phone to apologize or sent a message saying that, when it comes in stock, we'll send it to you plus some extra, or, whatever it may have been to try to make sure to keep me as a long-term customer. There are a lot of options for how you can, or give me a coupon if they were canceling out the order toward a future purchase, and, with their apologies, and anything that might have said, look, we're sorry for taking a week and a half to tell you we're not going to send you this product.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. Do you think that coupon would have fixed the situation?
I don't think that it would have made up for the fact that they had poor communication, but I think that it would have at least said to me that, they recognized that this was not handled in a way that it should have been.
Would you go back to them?
Well, at this point, I got what I needed elsewhere, and so I wasn't in the market for the particular product at the moment. And if they had given me some kind of, maybe I would have gone back and taken a look for something else, or depending on what they'd offered me, maybe they could have tried to recapture me as a customer and build a positive experience, but they didn't really do anything to get me to do that. And, I wasn't going to go back for the same product at this point. I had already, I was already at that point, since they couldn't get it, going to get it elsewhere. So, it's a tough one. And again, I understand that, I'm trying to be gracious in situations like that, because I understand that they may have been inundated at the moment, or this may have been a very unusual time for them as a business. However, there's still regardless of how I handle, so like I'm not out there leaving bad reviews or doing anything negative where someone might have been.
Yep.
That's not my nature, but they didn't capture me as a customer at all. And I think that's, to me, that just the net effect is that they could have attempted to soften the blow, and they didn't. And they could have come back to me. Now it's been another week and a half or something. They could have come back in the aftermath to say, we were really behind, and we know that you and others, I assume others were in the same boat, experienced this, and so this is how we're gonna we're going to address it with you, and we hope you'll come back.
Yeah, and
it's never too late to go back to people, in my opinion, in these situations and say, we had an unusual event, and that's the truth when there's a technical issue, and so people's orders got delayed or had issues, whatever it may be. That I don't think it's ever too late to try to save what could be a long-term relationship.
I don't know. I think that in this specific example, I think that they messed up the relationship. And if they would have come back a week or two later and said, "Hey, we're very sorry this happened. It was a situation beyond our control. Like, check out our catalog, see if there's anything that you like, take a discount." I think that might already be too late to salvage that relationship. But here's how easily they could have mitigated all of this. Like, you don't have a time to type up a template email to send out to all your customers. Fine. Grab your cell phone. Like, one of your employees grabs her phone. Like, I prefer ladies to do this because they come off a little nicer than guys.
Oh, you're saying I don't come off as nice?
You come off very nice, Robert. You really do come off very nice. However, like, I think a woman's touch, more finesse, would probably do better. So here's what I would do. Like, if I was a merchant facing the same situation, I would have Linda pick up her phone every day and record a video. "Hey, it's Linda from ABC Store. Today is March 27th, and as of today, we're still like having a hard time with some of the items, like getting some of the items shipped out. It is not our fault. Here's what's happening. We're working with the manufacturer. We're working with our supplier. Like, here's what is happening. I am going to keep you updated on this thing daily, right?
Yes.
And by the way, here's my phone number. You can call me. Either I or one of my colleagues will pick up the phone and talk to us about this if you have any additional questions. And by the way, here's my email. You can just respond to this email. We typically respond within a few hours. Like, we'll do everything to get this to you as soon as humanly possible." This video production would have taken, like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, posting it to YouTube or wherever else you want to host it would have taken another 120 seconds. Then just shove it into your CRM, whatever it is that you're using to mass communicate.
There are ways to do it, and look, I don't know I don't know if the gender of the person calling makes a real difference. I'm willing to concede that women are the smarter gender, so maybe people just respect what they say a little bit more. I'll go with that, but but I agree that at that point you want whoever is getting on the line, and that may more often be someone with a more motherly tone or something, just somebody that's going to make people feel like someone cares.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I see where you're coming from with it, that's really what it's about. It's letting them hear that they're real people, and that somebody cares. And I think right now, that's all most people want to feel and experience in the world, is that we're all very removed from each other. More than normal. I'm a guy that is used to working remotely, and obviously this is a bit of an extreme time. I think that anything that you do to stop and humanize the situation is going to be a plus. And again, Amazon, I'm going to pick on them. Sorry, Mr. Bezos. is a marketplace of automation and commodity, and when you can build real relationship, there it is such a difference in how your business operates and how your customers think of you, treat you, interact with you. Their loyalty to you. I like e-commerce sites building things like loyalty programs where there's reward points and
Yep.
and other benefits. I like e-commerce sites that do things to encourage people to return and to participate, and to share and to like and to and to interact. But there is nothing that's going to do that on the level of the human touch.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, not to defend Amazon for what it is, right? It is all about automation, but they will communicate more than a typical merchant.
Yes.
Like, let me give you an example. Very recently, I ordered something from them, and they said, this item will be delivered to you in 3 to 4 weeks. They gave me a time frame of like March 17th through 23rd or something like that. Wide window, and like so many weeks away, whereas usually this would be delivered by Prime within like 48 hours, right? In that time, they sent me an email update a few days after the order, and then they said, another email later, they said, we think we're going to be able to ship this to you sooner. We think that you're going to get it not in April, but by March 31st. Then they sent me another email saying, we think it's going to be March 29th. And then they sent me an email today saying it's getting delivered today. They have stayed on top of communication, albeit it was done automatically, but still, they communicated with the customer, reassured the customer that they didn't just, we took your money, we took your order, it will be delivered, as we said, sometime in April, and then just surprise me. Hey, it's delivered, right? They've communicated with me.
Yeah.
Most merchants couldn't be bothered to do that, although those merchants need money much more than Bezos does.
Yeah.
Right? And
those customers are much more vital to to most merchants than
Of course. Bezos
absolutely.
Already got hundreds of millions of us as customers.
And he's got many other lines of business that drive in lots of revenue and profit.
And oh, by the way, overwhelming majority of customers pay $119 for Prime membership. He's got us, yet he still does better job communicating than many people who need us as customers, most of the merchants. So if you think about it, like today, whatever types of goods that you're selling on your website, I could arguably go and get goods in the same category, if not exact same thing, right? So the user experience that your website delivers is the differentiating factor, but even more so because anyone can build a great website. Well, I shouldn't say anyone, but anyone who knows how to create a great user experience, everyone who knows what, shameless plug for JetRails, where to set up their website to make sure that it's incredibly fast and secure, because I think like Walmart found out the hard way that by increasing their load speeds, they were able to increase their sales by tens of millions of dollars per month.
The correlation between loading speed and conversion rate is astounding.
Yeah.
I've got articles and things. I won't, I won't go into too much detail on this particular episode, but it's the same thing, that there are businesses that right now that that are dealing with scalability issues, that never expected the amount of traffic that they've gotten and don't have the right resources to solve for that in an emergency. And those are the kinds of things that the JetRails thrives in, because we focus on supporting growth e-commerce. So it's without trying to make it a plug, I think that whether it's JetRails or another vendor, that it's important to pay attention to the things that matter.
Yeah, and it's true. And once again, this may sound like a commercial for JetRails, but here's the truth, right? If you can get JetRails to speed up your website by half a second, JetRails is going to be absolutely free to your business, right? Because your conversion is going to improve. You're going to make more sales. So think about it this way. Anyone who can speed up your website is free. Anyone who can improve user experience on your website is free, because they more than pay for themselves. I know that some of the merchants will be like, well, we'd like to, save money on this and that. It is, speaking of misconceptions, early on you asked me about misconceptions. That is a mind-blowing misconception. we're trying to save money. We will not spend more than this on hosting, or we're not trying, or we're not.
Well, yeah, if you're spending, I don't know, I'm going to pick a number out of about $100 an hour for your web developer, and your web developer has got to kill a whole bunch of time trying to get support out of a hosting company that's not really, set up to handle the types of mission critical needs. And you're paying for those hours of, so yeah, the hosting was cheap, but somebody's costing you money. It's the same way that, you go and you don't get a managed hosting service, but you go directly to something like AWS, which back to Mr. Bezos, now we host lots of users on AWS, but we optimize it so that you're using the right resources. You're not burning through unnecessary bandwidth or other things that it's metered. You're paying for it. And so at some point, sometimes getting something properly optimized, getting something properly run, and the same is going to apply when it comes to building, a site or rebuilding it. That in life they always say, you can have it fast, you can have it cheap, you can have it good, right? Pick two out of the three. You're never going to get all three in the same time. That I think that's the challenge. Is that and with web hosting, part of it is that people think of it as an afterthought. It's like, they put a lot of thought into the design. They put a lot of thought into certain facets of the business. I find even things like optimizing the shipping, so that you're not overpaying for shipping, so that you've got better rates, which whether you pass those on to the shopper, which can improve your conversion rates. People don't want to overpay for shipping either. They're comparing you to others. Or, whether that's just helping your margins, that by better optimizing back of the house, you'd be amazed at what it can have in terms of effect on your net.
100%.
And so there's a lot of that. It's not just hosting. It applies to a lot of categories that, if you take the time to look at every facet of the business and to tighten the nuts and bolts, you can really set yourself up for easier, better growth with better margins. And in many cases, you can free up staff from spending time dealing with problems or doing things manually, get more support, more automation, more other things in there, and have your team focus on growing the business out there, on talking to your customers and making them feel good and helping to promote them shopping more, even if that's through something like live chat where you're helping shoppers on the website in real time.
Always. How can you not have live chat today?
Right? So, I mean, whatever it is that you're going to have those staff members dedicate themselves to, it's where's your team spending time now? I love to look at and why. Is there a cheaper solution when you look at what that employee is costing? Is there something out there that'll do it more effectively for less money and free up that person? Not to, I always look at this and I understand that there are cases where that might give an opportunity to cut down staff, but I rarely see it as someone being removed from a team. I usually see it as someone in reality and in the real world is being repurposed. As being able to do something much more valuable for the company that the companies wish that they were able to focus on. So,
there's another thing, like you brought up like live chat, and it's so crazy for me to see like e-commerce websites, merchants not having chat support or any other type of like real support, phone. And when you ask merchant, like, why don't you have that? They're like, we just don't have the resources to do that. And I'm like, I know. And how I know this is because you're leaving a lot of money on the table by not offering customers the support that they need. You're simply turning them away and sending them somewhere else where they will get that support. It's so basic, but
not that many people on an average business in a normal situation are going to call you up. It's e-commerce. They don't want to talk to you.
True.
They don't want to bother you, but they want to know that they can. That they want to see that phone number. They don't feel very good about the idea that if they haven't purchased from you before, they don't know you. If they have an issue, that they're going to be stuck. Without a solid way of communicating. That who wants to wait for a week to get a response to an email?
But Peter, at the same time, when you think about B2B e-com, like that's a must. Like you got to have that phone there.
Yeah. Well, like one order in B2B can be so valuable. Business to business is its own animal in many ways. That the same way that, in retail, if you're selling, an average order value of $50, your relationship with a customer and the volume of customers that you hopefully have is very different than, B2B if you're selling an average order of $1,000 or $10,000. And you should have a sales team with a CRM that's following up with those folks and,
Sure.
making sure that any potential order that it's coming your way, that just because it's e-com doesn't mean the sales team goes away.
Correct.
That
So
they're,
true.
it's so interesting that how things, the more things change, the more that they stay the same. It's it's modern application, a modern channel for things that have worked for a very, very long time.
Yep. Peter,
and that's what live chat is. It's, it's the sales clerk that you get to ask a question, that you get to say, hey, I'm looking for this, I can't seem to find it, or what do you recommend, or, whatever, however you want to look at it, that it's a human being to help you through the sales process.
Yep.
Who wants to run a retail store and not have somebody that you can just, hey, you got
True.
that.
Let me, I'm getting a signal that I have to go. I have another meeting coming up, but let me give you my favorite story about what you just said from JetRail's parent company, because I've known JetRail's parent company for like 20 years, right? So many, many, many years ago, eBound Host got a phone call from a guy out in California who said he wanted to get a server, but didn't know which server to get and whether he actually needed a server. So the founders of eBound Host talked to the guy, and they're like, listen, for what you're looking for, we can send you an old server. We don't need it anymore. You can have it for free if you pay like $30 shipping charge. And the guy's like, awesome, send it to me. So these two guys, they sent him this server absolutely free of charge. Pays $30 for shipping, and then a couple months go by. The guy calls them again, and he says, I started this business out of my garage. It's small, but like I need an additional server. And they're like, okay, we'll set it up for you. So they set up one server. And then some months go by, and he calls them, hey, I need like 4 more servers. And they're like, oh, interesting. You're like really ramping up. And he's like, yeah, we're getting busy. And then time goes by, and this guy just keeps on like getting more and more servers. And then the guy stops calling. Somebody else from his company continues to call. Long story short, and I think this story is now 12 or 13 years in the making. There came a point, I think that was 3 or 4 years ago, when that guy went public and continued using eBound Host's servers. And there came a point where I cannot disclose the exact numbers, but a substantial amount of profit, not profit, revenue, came from that one client. Why? They answered the stupid phone.
Well, and they thought creatively about, it's actually, I have not heard this story before, which puts a big smile on my face. But
great story.
It fits exactly with how JetRails operates. But they weren't offering their traditional product or service. They weren't, they didn't just look at it like a yes or a no. Yes, this is, either buy something that we offer or don't. They they actually took the time to to think creatively and humanely, and that's fantastic.
And they talk about seeing results later down the road without disclosing how much, but that revenue is measured in millions. Not 1 million, not 2 million, not 3 million, not millions.
Well, now people are going to think that, this whole grassroots marketing thing that I'm doing with this podcast, that I'm really underselling it. But hey,
no, you're not underselling. It's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah, I'm not big on flash and razzmatazz, and I'd really like to keep it about, commerce conversation. But so Sasha, I know you're running short on time, and this has been absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thanks, and sharing insights. Any final thoughts before I wrap it up?
Yeah, be great. Think big. Whatever business that you have, you may do, I don't know, $20,000 in revenue now, or you may be doing $20 million in revenue. Think bigger, right? Always think bigger, set strong objectives, and just aim for them. And remember, we talked about like the value of JetRails and marketing companies and web design companies. Remember that a good vendor is going to be absolutely free to you. So if you think you don't have a budget for a good vendor, you're paying for that vendor just a lot more in the revenue that you're not realizing. It's just as simple as that. So change your mindset. Always think like expansion when everyone thinks recession. Think big. Think that a good vendor is a lot cheaper, actually free, than a not so good vendor, and you'll rock and roll.
Good. Well, if to our listeners out there, as always, thank you for tuning in. We've got a lot more great episodes coming, especially for those that are looking for advice in how to continue to operate successfully or really build a successful operation in e-commerce. We're committed to bringing information that's going to be specific to what you're seeing in the market right now. If you have questions about this podcast or any of our podcasts, any of the episodes, if you'd like us to connect you with some experts, again, I'm going to share some links in the notes in the description to the episode. But we do hope that you'll reach out, and if there's a way that we can help. I know in this episode we went into a lot of high level thoughts and some specific examples that may or may not apply to you, but rest assured there are people out there that want to help, and so. We hope that we will hear from you if there's anything we can do for you. And with that, I wish you a happy selling, a lot of health, and stay safe out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Take care, guys.